What's up, everybody? What's up? We got a very, very special guest. She's a very respected businesswoman. She's a very inspirational person in the United States. Marissa Streit. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
It's Strite, like Sprite, the drink that's bad for you. Very non-maha, but
You
but
never
easy
know.
to remember. Strite.
Yeah, she's looking very presidential. You never know. Maybe in the 2030s, she's the president of the United States. But either way, welcome. Thank you for coming. I
Well,
know you're very busy.
thank you. I think I'd be a terrible politician because I always speak my mind, and I think for the most part, aside from President Trump, who clearly gets away with it, I'm not sure there could be another president who gets away with speaking their mind. So I might be too much of a troublemaker for politics.
All right, all right. Well, if I guess we'll get right into it here. I know you got a limited time. There's just a bunch of questions I'd love to ask you. So,
All right, let's do it.
All right. So you're the CEO of Prager University, right? And I have a German wife. She's Christian. We have a German Bible in our home. I'm Jewish, and admittingly, I don't know that much about Christianity. And so I'm curious. So, and I ask this in a very respectful way. If God promised to bless those who bless Israel, what happens to a nation if it turns its back on her?
Well, I think this is a question that people are constantly asking, and we really never know what happens, right? We can't read God's mind, but we can read God's Bible. We can read the Old Testament, and if you're a Christian, you're going to read the New Testament, and you're going to infer from it what God means by what you're referring to, the chosen people, right? Who has been made the promise, and what does even chosenness mean? Are the Jews chosen because they're better, or have they been chosen because they provide an example of what happens when the world turns on God? Are the Jews chosen to bring the good book, the Torah, the Old Testament, to the rest of the world, so the Christians can actually go and take the book and disseminate it? I often describe the relationship between Jews and Christians, where the Jews are the root of this incredible tree, as we've been given the Torah, and the Christians are the tree itself, and oftentimes the branches, as they spread the wisdom and the incredible power of what it is that the Old Testament and then later on the New Testament teaches. And like a tree needs its roots in order to survive. A tree without its roots doesn't know where it comes from, doesn't understand its purpose. And the roots of a tree needs the tree to grow, because we need whether it's the protection or its full fruition of spreading its message and bringing its full potential. And so what does it mean to be a chosen nation? I think the chosenness is in fulfilling its purpose, in bringing the Torah and inspiring others to grow roots and to be grafted into the important message of the Old Testament. And so when people take the Old Testament and they take the Jewish people and they say, well, let me slide them out and slide somebody else in, like as they do with replacement theology, I wonder, could anybody just take the Old Testament and in fact the New Testament and slide different nations in and reinterpret things and reword things? Well, obviously people do that, and ultimately it's up to people's own decision. At what point do you say that it's the word of God, and then you allow yourself to go change those words in a way that's convenient for you?
Yeah, I think I hear a lot of people get upset at the thought that and I would imagine, like, to me, I feel like we have like 1 billion bot accounts across American social media, because it's unique. We're in the United States. It's almost like we welcome all these bot accounts to come and just push slander towards the Jewish people and the state of Israel, which is our ally, and like one of the slanderous comments I would love to see what you think on as an expert, as a respected expert in theology, Christian theology, and you understand the Jewish faith, is when people try to say that America is not a Judeo-Christian country, to me, that just I don't know, but to me that just seems off, because it seems like John Adams, Ben Franklin, George Washington, and these early founding fathers of the United States, I think they did embrace the Jewish faith in the founding, in the framers of the Constitution and so forth. But I don't know. Like I may completely sound like an idiot here. Please educate us.
Well, I mean, the founders of the United States of America were Christian, and they were believers, and they had incredible reverence for the Old Testament and the Torah. So much so that the US Constitution and much of America's legal system is based on Jewish teachings, whether it was even as far back as John Locke, who later on inspired the founders of America to understand how to craft this incredible city on the hill, this experiment that America was at a time, and now 250 years later still benefits from the combination of what they call Jerusalem and Athens. And so they based so much of morality and ethics and wisdom from Jerusalem, from the teachings in Jerusalem, combined with the teachings of Athens, of what it's like to be a citizen, and how would one build a civilization that allows for a democratic elections and ultimately a republic. America is that combination of Jerusalem and Athens. And without the Jerusalem element of the understanding of America's DNA, you don't understand America. I mean, George Washington was surrounded by Jews. In fact, at one point, he lived in a Jewish man's home during yellow fever because he needed a place to stay in order to not get infected. We have had multiple Jewish advisors who helped build the American colonies. There is a guy who actually helped fund the Revolutionary War, so much so that he brought his family to bankruptcy because he was so passionate about the American Revolution. And, he essentially paid for a big part of the Revolutionary War until later on they went to the French and got money from outside of the United States. And so the Jewish people have been a fundamental carrier of the wisdom of the Torah, and they have been fundamental developers of the American nation. Now, it's not to say that this is not a Christian nation. This is why we say it's a Judeo-Christian nation, because of that beautiful partnership that our founders really realized that they could benefit from.
Yeah, it's occasionally my part of my family is from Jerusalem, and I hear people in the West, in particular, they say something like that when Christians come to Israel, they get spit on. And I asked Jewish people this question when I was in Jerusalem. I said, do you guys spit on Christians when they come? And no one said that. No one said, yeah, I spit on a Christian. First of all, I would never take my wife there if that's how it worked. But that is actually not how it is, because there are Christians and there are Muslims in the state of Israel. So my question to you is, I would imagine you have been to Israel. I would imagine you have seen Christians and no Christians who have been to Israel. Out of, let's say, 100 Christians who have been to Israel, how many have ever told you they were spit on?
Well, let me just say this. Look at the Christian sites in the land of Israel, and pay attention to the excavations that Israel has been doing in the Christian areas. There is no place in the Middle East where you have seen Christian sites taken care of in the manner at which Israel has taken care of these Christian sites. The Christian sites are safer under Israel than anywhere else in the Middle East. And so that should say something significant. Now, with regards to the alleged spitting on Christians or spitting on anybody, let's just go back to understanding the basic human nature. And that is, you're always going to find amazing human beings, and you're always going to find terrible human beings. So could you find an Israeli who's going to do things that you don't like? Of course you will. The human race is divided into two sections, the decent and the indecent. And you're going to find indecent Israelis and you're going to find decent Israelis. But as a whole, There is no better place for Christians to live in the Middle East than in Israel. And take a perfect example. Just go north to Lebanon. Lebanon used to be a Christian country with Christian sites. It is no longer. It has been taken over by Islam and by Muslims and by jihadists. And the Christians who used to live in Lebanon have run away. And so ask yourself, by simply looking at the facts, look at the Christian sites, look at the Christian communities, and pay attention to the actual truth. And then you will actually get the proper answers. Now, you will find very decent Lebanese Muslims, just like you will find very decent Jewish Israelis, and you will find all kinds of people who are decent and indecent. But as a whole, Israel is institutionally focused on making sure that the Christian sites and the Christians that are living in Israel are protected and saved.
Yeah, I mean, it's when people say to me stuff like, "Oh, oh, you're chosen," do you, you're better than everyone else. I don't actually personally view it like that myself. I just view it like I am obligated to a standard of ethics and morality, to lead by example. I feel like it's an additional responsibility, and I definitely don't look down on any, for the Christian people who listen to this, I definitely could, consider you an equal. I think you're loved just as much by anyone as God would love anyone. And my wife is Christian, and I think that Christians, it seems like they're under a lot of attack, and I think that a lot of it is coming from Soviet propaganda, Qatar, and the Chinese Communist Party, and they're looking to break the one support that the United States, the most loyal, most faithful, and the most generous and loving Americans, I think, are the evangelical and Christian community in the United States, and they want to break that. And I think that there's bad faith actors now, and there's millions of dollars of disinformation campaigns, information war, and to break that, to fracture that, to splint that as much as possible. However, and I'd love to see what you think about this, this is not an exclusive problem to the United States. I think India, and I'm not Indian, but I have Indian friends. It sounds like they're also getting attacked, and they're also getting the Hindu faith attacked. So it's almost like the actors that want to destroy democracies and freedom, they're attacking the Hindu faith with unique tactics. And they're also taking that same playbook and applying it here to the Christians. That's just how it seems like to me. I mean, I like, what do you think?
Well, let me address a couple of things. One is this term chosenness, and what does that even mean? You mentioned, oh, I don't think I'm better than others. I don't think most Jews think that they're better than others. And I would also make the claim that if we do believe that God has chosen the Jewish people to receive the Old Testament and bring it to the world, it does not mean that the Jews are better. It's very possible, just like when I pick one of my kids to carry something or send an example, I actually choose them because I think they're mostly like everybody else and should be relatable, so that the other kids around would actually follow as well. This idea of chosenness is not chosen as better, but actually just chosen to be given a responsibility. And sometimes people will scapegoat the Jews, and this is the oldest trick in the book, because it's a small number of people and that has sustained throughout the years, and it's a source of jealousy for many, not understanding why the Jews have remained a nation throughout the years as all the other nations have fizzled out and have been taken out. And so it has become a source of scapegoating. And you will notice that almost every conspiracy in the book slides straight into blaming the Jews, because the Jewish faith essentially teaches you that it's about you, and your responsibility to make your life better, to live by a moral code, to have an ethical being, and to treat people the way you want to be treated. And when anybody doesn't like that and they want to be able to blame other people, it's always these conspiracy theorists who want to blame the other, that their finger ends up landing on the Jews. And so when you talk about countries that really want to attack the West, and they want to create a wedge and divide essentially Western civilization that has upheld liberty for all, the first thing that they look at is, well, how do we create this wedge? How do we create this divide? How do we break a merit-based and ethics-based country and system? And obviously, their first step is to attack the Jews, because they know that once you attack the Jews, who are bringing ethics, morality, merit, discernment, fairness into civilization, once you can attack the Jews and you can say the Jew, right? Once you can attack them, then you can really take down a society. And so you saw that in Nazi Germany. You have seen this before as you read the Old Testament, time and time again. Attack the Jew so that you can attack ethics, morality, fairness, common sense, lead with conspiracy theories rather than leading with ethical monotheism, as we call it here at Prager U. And so an attack on ethical monotheism is an attack on Jews and is an attack on liberalism, which is what really sustained Western civilization. So are the Chinese and the Russians and the jihadists interested in attacking Western civilization? Of course they are. The eye is on the prize. The prize is not Israel. The prize is the United States of America. The prize was Europe, which they pretty much took. And their next prize is to go after the United States of America. The Jews are just the first line of attack. They're what I call the Iron Dome of the West. But once they get through the Iron Dome of the West, then they're going to, make no mistake, they are coming after the United States of America, because that is the grand prize.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Soviet intelligence, they basically spent decades planting these stories about the Zionists and how it actually equals racism, and they've managed to stick Zionism with this colonialist apartheid propaganda that they do to the leftists. And so what do you think that the church can do today to recognize in the United States and confront this disinformation before it actually divides our Christian friends more? Or again,
the church in America has saved America time and time again before, time and time again. And the reason is because they answer to one entity, and that is to God. Churchgoers are more courageous. They're willing to speak out against PC culture, which, by the way, is political correctness, is a Russian Marxist invention. This is something that has come straight out of the USSR in the past. Churchgoers have been able to push against big government because they don't believe that government is God, but God is God. And so I have a lot of faith in the religious revival that we're seeing in America. And I know that a religious revival in America is very possibly a religious revival around the world. I mean, even in your own home country in Iran, that you're seeing a Christian religious revival, because people are so disgusted by what the Ayatollah has done in the name of God, in the name of Islam, to its own citizens. And so I think that as Americans continue to be a hope and a light for people around the world, leading with faith and leading through the churches and reminding people that it is your home where you're going to find your answers. It is your church and your community where you're going to find meaning. It is not where you're not going to find meaning in blaming others. You're not going to find meaning and answers by attacking and dividing the brothers amongst each other, but actually uniting behind God's purpose. And I believe that the more young people, and by the way, there was a huge religious revival amongst Gen Zers, before our friend Charlie Kirk was murdered, but even more so now. And so, I think that the church could very well be the answer. But Nima, let me remind you that throughout history, the church has been used for political Christianity as well. And that is a very dangerous thing. Hitler has used the church for political Christianity in order to galvanize people and get them to hate the other, to get them to hate the Jews, to get them to hate people of color, to get them to hate gypsies and all kinds of people. And so we need to be very careful, because the Ten Commandments reminds us, do not use God's name in vain. And that reminder is at the top of the Ten Commandments because it is not only very dangerous, but it's very tempting. And so when we are seeing that people are using the church or the name of God in order to actually do evil, then we have to be on extra alert, because that is even more dangerous than when the left attacks us.
Yeah, there's an interesting book that I'm reading. It's called "Why Jews Are Liberal," and so it was written, I mean, maybe like 15 years back or something like that. And it's fascinating to me. And the author talks about how in Europe there was a point where the Christians were more dangerous to the Jewish communities, but then there was also another point where the leftists were more dangerous to the Jewish communities, and it sort of goes back and forth. And I feel like now we're starting to see you're starting to see like some leaders within the Christian community coming very hostile towards the Jewish community, not just in the United States, but also in Europe. And I would imagine that with the power of social media, now that is exactly who I would imagine hostile countries are boosting, incentivizing, manipulating the algorithm to make their ideas much more popular. There are so many Americans, that are basically saying propaganda that you may hear in Farsi in Iran. And they say it in English. And what a lot of Americans don't understand, I would say Iranian Americans understand this. I would say a lot of Arab Americans, Israeli Americans, they understand it, but especially Iranian Americans understand this better than anyone in the United States, I think, is that the stuff Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Nick Fuentes says, first of all, they're basically celebrated on Iranian state media. Okay, they're promoted. They're viewed as like heroes to a hostile regime that burns American flags and calls us the Great Satan. So a lot of what they're saying is literally just like they just translated from Farsi to English. In Iran, you got people that are Baha'i, you got Kurds, you got Christians, you got Zartosh, you got a lot of ethnic minorities. And then what they do, which I think is outrageous, they put a small Jewish community that's basically scared for their life. They're scared for their life, Marissa. They're truly scared for their life. And then they parade them around. They bring a European or American influencer. They say how the Jew in Iran has a lot of freedom. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously going to talk like that when you got like he knows that when the camera goes, you might hang him in the town square. So they've managed to now focus on one Christian that was tragically murdered by accident by the IDF, which I think is among the most morally superior militaries in the history of the human civilization. I mean, they go so far out of their way as they're surrounded by states around the world. And there's a reason why the IDF has such a prestigious brand with many people who love freedom. But my question here to you is this: is that could you give another example of how Christians are prosecuted, tortured in the Middle East, other than the Lebanese, like you said? Because I just think a lot of people don't understand this, and I know you're speaking also from a Christian viewpoint.
Well, first of all, I am Jewish, so I spent a lot of time with Christian pastors, and I learned from them. And I think it's one of the reasons why I am so knowledgeable about the New Testament and what's happening within the Christian world is because I do a lot. I spend a lot of time asking questions, and I'll tell you. You talk about Iran. My heart breaks for Iranians because I have Iranian Christian friends here in California. I have Muslim Iranian friends here in California. There has been a true brain drain out of this incredible country, Iran. Just unbelievable people, the Iranian people are. And they, not just the Jews, have been robbed of the potential of what they could become. And who robbed them? Who robbed them? These jihadists who robbed them. And so if they're robbing the own Persians, if they're robbing their own people, imagine how they're going to treat the Jews and the Israelis. And it really is too bad. America and Israel did get involved and try to provide a boost for these people who have been yearning for freedom and yearning for a regime change. And, I hope that they haven't lost that moment in where they could fight back, because there was a moment that I had hope that Iran could go back to living its true potential. And, I don't know how much longer these folks have. I mean, I think that while President Trump is in office and while Israel has the appetite to help and push back, I think the Iranian people might still have a chance, but there might be a moment where the next generation will just not even know what freedom tastes like, where they wouldn't even want to fight for it anymore. I mean, look at North Korea. Look at North Korea. If you have an Iranian audience that is watching this, look at what the West has been able to do for South Korea versus North Korea. Which one is it that you choose? And what are you willing to do for your children and your grandchildren in order for them to have the freedom that they deserve? Why is it that for the most part, the safest place for Persians to live in the Middle East is Israel? Why is that? I mean, is anybody thinking about the potential of what the Persian community could do? Should they be freed from the Ayatollah? Not to mention the rest of the cancer that Iran has been propagating around planet Earth. And so, I think that we're very lucky, Nima, that we're living in these messianic times. You talk about the Christian community. I mean, the Christian community, the true Christian community, especially the ones who are reading through the book of Revelation, they realize that there is something very special that we're living through right now. We don't understand it. It's incredibly scary. It might be bigger than us. It might be something that we can't quite put our finger on what's going on, but something special is definitely going on. And so for those of us who are awake and are alert, we must pay attention to the little miracles that God is sending us. Sometimes God will send us all these miracles and we're so focused on what it is that the devil is doing that we're just ignoring the potential of what we could do. And if we just bring ourselves back to standing in the light, right? And really understanding what it is that God meant for us and what God is trying to do for us, then we can have that courage, we can have that discernment to fight back and frankly unite all the decent people around the world to fight against the indecent, which is what we're seeing.
Yeah, it's, man, yeah, you're nailing it. It's like in the Jewish community, for example, I never feel like we think like, oh, let's go into another country and rape their daughters, cut off their heads, and, go in there and conquer their country and have them submit to the Torah. Like, has there ever, and you know more about faith than I do, in history, how common is that for the Jewish people to invade another country, behead their people, rape their daughters, and then murder them in front of their face and conquer their country? Is that something that has happened throughout history?
I mean, the Jews believe in the sanctity of life, right? The Jews have been given the Torah from God. The Jews have been given the 10 Commandments. The Jews uphold the 10 Commandments, and in the 10 Commandments it says, "Do not murder." I mean, as you look at the reuniting of the Jews in the state of Israel in 1948, where in one day, by the way, this is in the New Testament. The New Testament predicts that in one day God will return its land to its nation and to its people. And 1948, in one day, that is what has happened. Now, around the same time, Pakistan was conquered by the jihadists, where again they murdered people, they killed people. This is how they took their land. And so all you have to do is you have to really wonder what is happening in all these other countries where jihad is happening, whether it's Nigeria, whether what happened in Pakistan that I mentioned, what is happening in Syria currently right now. The list goes on and on. Why is the world paying attention to Israel and not paying attention to all the atrocities that are happening, not just to Jews, not just to Christians, but even to Muslim women and daughters around the world. Nobody is paying attention to that. For people to not pay attention to that, you realize that there is a bigger picture here, and that is a fight between good and evil. Evil is blinding people. It is blinding people because people don't want to look at the truth. The truth is too bright. It's too bright to stare into the truth. It's so much easier to just be sheep and to go with the flow and believe what the media is feeding you. And ultimately, we have raised a generation without discernment, without understanding how to discern between good versus evil. And this is what I believe God is trying to remind us. We need to go back to educating our children and educating the youth to be able to discern what is true, what is beautiful, and what is good versus what is evil. And so as we talk about what it means to be chosen, it's possible that the Jews are chosen by God to set an example for the rest of the world, that we need to go back to his ways, to his teachings, to his important message, that evil does exist in human nature. It does exist. And we as humans who have the discernment to tell between good and evil, who can see who is decent and who is indecent, those of us who are able to see it and stand in the light must fight against evil. I think that all these horrible things that are happening to us, again, are a reminder from God that we need to stand up and fight against the evil that is happening around the world. Because if we don't, believe me, what you have seen on October 7th could be so much worse.
Yeah, I mean, if truth is light and disinformation is darkness, how could ordinary Christians or Hindus, for example, in India, how could they take this and become warriors of truth? Not just by like arguing online, but by, let's say, educating and praying and leading others out of that darkness that they see on social media from these bot accounts that want to destroy all of us who love freedom.
The Bible reminds us that those who love God hate evil. And the word hate is a very strong word. It doesn't say those who love God just, stay away from evil. No, it means you have to hate evil. You really, really have to hate evil. And when you hate something enough, then you find whatever blessings you have, whatever God has given you, and you wake up every morning and you go to sleep every night knowing that you hate evil so much that you're going to use whatever time of day you have to fight against it. And so just like what you're doing, God has blessed you with the ability to have a voice in a podcast. Not everybody can do a podcast, but believe me, every human has been created in the image of God with special blessings. And we can't underestimate the power of those special blessings. All it takes is a few decent people to do everything they can in order to fight against the indecent, and then we win. I mean, we've seen the miracles that God supports. I mean, absolute miracles that God supports when good people are willing to fight evil. The problem is when good people are unwilling to fight, or they wait for others to do the fighting for them, then evil prevails.
Yeah, recently Tucker Carlson was with Nick Fuentes, and he said that he dislikes the Christian Zionists more than he dislikes leftist rioters, Islamic terrorists, Nazis, and Chinese communists. Do you think that's helpful for America's prosperity?
I mean, it's really shocking because Charlie Kirk was a Christian Zionist, and I can't imagine Tucker Carlson disliking Charlie Kirk, given that he is so active at Turning Point USA. And so, it's pretty shocking what people are saying these days. And you got to wonder who is getting them to say these things. And if they actually really mean it, then it's even scarier.
Yeah, my theory is that we're probably 6 months to a year away from Tucker Carlson. Not only is he headlining TPUSA events, but he's saying, hey, he's having a friendly conversation with TPUSA. Hey guys, I know you need another 2 million in funding for, these things. I want to help you expand your organization across America so we can help more people. I have an investor for you. And that investor is, it's an American company. It's a shell company, but in actuality, the money's coming from Doha. It's coming from Qatar, or it's coming from another country, just one layer away from Qatar, but it's actually Qatari money. And I could completely see that December of next year, Nick Fuentes, who has trashed Charlie Kirk for years, as a headliner of TPUSA. And from just a national security standpoint, is there anything that we can do to stop hostile countries like this from just invading our organizations and our schools and our media? I think a lot of Americans are just incredibly frustrated that we're just allowing these foreigners to come into our country, do foreign interference in our elections, like what the Chinese Communist Party is doing by boosting Mamdani. The billions of dollars the Chinese Communist Party in Qatar, who financed 9/11, are doing into our universities. All these podcasts that just somehow have such a unique foreign policy bent on Israel that's almost identical with Qatar. And if you go to Qatar, you go to China, they just block us. Marissa, they completely block us. They somehow have managed to block us, go on pure offense here, and just go all out with social media on this Soviet propaganda. I mean, what can we do to stop? Is there anything we can do, or next year are we going to have 4 or 5 billion bot accounts all pushing Soviet propaganda against us, and there's nothing we can do because, hey, we're free speech? I'd love to.
Well, I think Nima, we have to be realistic. Foreign governments and foreign entities and people are going to try to lobby the U.S. government because they want U.S. support. They will do it. They have been doing it. Every country that could afford to do it has done it and will probably try to do it as long as they can get away with it. And by the way, the United States also lobbies across the world. I mean, you can look it up in different ways, whether, they send delegations or they offer to make investments in certain places. We're talking about big boy stuff. And so we got to be realistic about the fact that people are going to try to buy us out. But I believe in Erica Kirk. I believe that Charlie Kirk has chosen Erica Kirk because she is a discerning woman. Now, she's new at this, and she's at the helm of a massive organization with big responsibility, and she has little kids. But Charlie has surrounded Erica with many people who, some of them you may not agree with, and some of them you may agree with. But she hasn't. I know they're pastors. I know Rob McCoy. I know Pastor Jack Hibbs. I know I'm Frank Turek. These are incredible people. These are discerning people. They're heavy hitters. They have written about Christian theology. They have preached for many years. It's not that they have been a Christian like some of these other podcasters for about 5 minutes and then they speak in the name of Christianity because it's politically convenient for them. I mean, I'm talking about heavy hitter Christians who know what they're talking about. These people are advisors to Erica Kirk. Erica Kirk is an amazing woman with great discernment. I hope, and I'm still going to hold hope until I see otherwise. I hope that she is not going to take any money that is going to hurt America, her own legacy, her own family legacy, and certainly the world. Erica loves Israel. Erica loves the Jewish people. I know she loves Dennis Prager. She, actually just wrote a blurb for Dennis's next book. And so I understand where you're coming from, Nima. I know that you're worried, and I understand many people are worried as well. And I think that Turning Point just got a huge shock. They just got a huge shock. They lost their fearless leader. I'm sure that if Charlie, and I can't even tell you how upsetting this is to me in this time. We lost Charlie at a time where we really, really needed him in this fight because he was that dam. He was able to figure out how to just give enough free speech, but not to a point where everything just blows open. And I'm sure that as Turning Point is figuring out who their advisors are, they're going to start reconciling and realizing what is the right thing to do, because their leader, the creator of Turning Point USA, was a moral, righteous man who was very focused on ethical monotheism. It is why he spent so much time with Dennis Prager. And, I I think that the Qataris are certainly going to try, and so will the Chinese and so many other governments. They're going to try to lobby U.S. media companies. They're going to try to go after young influencers that are easily purchasable, and they're going to try and try and try. And that's why, you know, organizations like PragerU, we continue to remind people that ultimately you have an audience of one, and that is the audience of God. And at the end of the day, you're going to be judged by him. Your legacy is going to be judged by the right things that you do versus the wrong things that you do, not how much money you have. And so, you know, we got to keep, you know, we got to keep our friends close, and we need to keep encouraging our friends at Turning Point USA, because ultimately I think that with Erica Kirk, they are in good hands. And with the pastors that Charlie has chosen to advise them, I do trust that they'll make the right choices.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of propaganda, and this I don't know if she's like what country this lady is working for, but I would I would love for you to look at this propaganda and just because not everyone knows what's going on like you, so they can't break it down. So I'm about to put it here. If you could like a 4-minute class, if you can, I would like truly love for you to explain to people, like, let's just look what she says. Like, how is this lying? How is this dishonest to our Christian friends who we value so much as Jewish people? And they're lying about how we view. I as a Jewish man, for me, when I see the Talmud and I see the Torah, to me, arguably the number one biggest principle that I've ever taken from it is the importance of humility, letting someone save face in a situation, for example, and having humility. And then there's like so many interpretations and breakdowns of how one rabbi was so humble. And then there's these like riddles of how, and then you think about it and you're like, oh, wow, this guy was so humble, and the decency of humility. I never have seen in any Jewish text or heard a rabbi tell me, for example, that, you know, goyim, first of all, I've never even seen that word, but apparently, I think a lot of Gen Z in the United States today, when they go on social media, they are seeing this stuff. We cannot wish this stuff away. I'm pretty pragmatic about it. That's why I'd like you and me to confront this. So, like, to our Christian friends that see this, to our non-Christian friends who see this, to our Muslim friends, Hindu friends, they see this, and they see that the Talmud, this lady, who's I think a known propagandist, probably working with an intelligence agency abroad, probably gets boosted, algorithmic manipulation on steroids, it's coordinated disinformation up the wazoo, and you know, we welcome it. And in fact, next year, the 20-year-old Christian that may look at this in Texas, he's going to probably see this 20, 30, 40 more times than maybe that he's already seen it this year. So I could make a video, just a short video about this to help others understand how this is. What is this? Is this true from a Christian perspective, from a Jewish perspective to our Christian friends? Here it says the Talmud. Okay. So Forum 15, even the best of Goyim should all be killed. And this other one, she says, all children of Goyim are animals. Another part, it says, if a Goy hits a Jew, he must be killed. What do you think when you log on to social media? Or let's say your Christian friend, she's 20, she logs on social media. What would you say to them when they see stuff like this?
Well, I mean, I'd hope that people have more discernment than this absolute nonsense. It's like, if you're willing to consume a steady diet of lies and believe them, then, you know, go ahead. I mean, people should know by now that if they just see some hateful clip on social media, they should immediately wonder who is making this kind of clip, and what purpose is it to divide Americans and lie about a nation of people. All of the stuff that I'm reading here makes no sense to me. I've never heard about it. I've studied lots of Talmud. I've met with many rabbis, never heard any of these things. Okay, so let's start with that. Let's also go into the absolute proof that the Jews and the nation of Israel have actually done the exact opposite. I mean, they have United Hatzalah, which is one of their main organizations, where they help people all over the world, whether it's an earthquake or a flood, or including in countries that have been adversarial to Israel. They have sent in people and helped them. And so if in fact the goal of the Jews was to kill non-Jews, they're doing a pretty bad job at it, given that they spend so much time, money, and effort in saving people around the world in other nations. Israel oftentimes is the first to provide a direct response and medical support during atrocities and terrible things that happen around the world. And so, Nima, the issue is that we have taught young folks in the West to believe in lies on a regular basis. That we send them to school and our institutions have lied to them. And that's part of the problem. If you keep lying to your children while you send them to institutions, and then they go on social media and they have no discernment and they continue to believe in lies, how do you find that shocking? You shouldn't find that shocking. So, we've been teaching kids that a boy is a girl and a girl is a boy, and they could chemically castrate themselves, and they can change their gender, and that an adult is less wise than a child, and a child knows better than the adult. Like, really, you think that you were wiser when you were 14 years old than you are today? No, and nobody listening to this really thinks that when they were 10 or 14, they were wiser than they are today. But somehow we've decided to lie to our students and to our children and say to them, actually, you're wiser than your parents. So if you want to take a chemical and castrate yourself and turn into another gender, that's totally fine. Dismiss your parents. And these kinds of lies have been going on for years. We have lied to young Americans that America is a force for evil around the world. It is one of the biggest lies we have ever taught in the West. America is not perfect, but America has been a force for good around the world. Ask any South Korean if they would rather live in South Korea or in North Korea, and then you can remind them to thank America and Americans for being a force for good around the world. And so America continuously has been a force for good around the world, yet Americans and American institutions have been teaching kids lies about our own nation and our own country. So when they go on social media, do you think they're inoculated against lies? Do you think we have taught them how to have discernment? Do you think we have equipped them in knowing how to stand in the light and identify when things are evil and when things are good? No, we have not equipped them. And so when they look at the post like this one, they might just believe it. But whose fault is it really, Nima? Is it only the fault of the outside country that is propagating and attacking young Americans? Is it only the fault of whoever this person, this cuckoo person? I don't even know who they are.
I mean, it's not even American, but she interferes with an election.
Okay. It's not just their fault. It's incumbent upon us to protect our children before they go out into the world. There's a reason why the Jews say you got to put a mezuzah on the doorpost, and you got to kiss it, and you got to acknowledge it every day when you walk through your door, right? What is inside the mezuzah? What is inside of this doorpost? The ve'ahavta, right? And vishinantam levanecha, and you teach them to your children. The Torah, the Old Testament, reminds you and me that every day we got to teach our children discernment and truth. Because if we don't teach them every single day what is discernment, what is truth, what is good, what is evil, then yes, they will then go on social media and believe bogus lies. How do we fix all of this? We can't fix the fact that other countries are going to try to penetrate into America because we are the grand prize. We can't fix the fact that other countries are going to try to lobby here and going to try to brainwash our children. We can't fix that. You know what we could fix? We can fix things within our own home. That's what we can gain control over. That's really the conversation that matters today. How do we take what we know is happening in the outside world and we protect our children, we protect our communities, we teach our kids what actually matter, and we stop relying on outside institutions to do the big important work for us. Everything we want to see in the world starts in our own homes and our own communities. The moment we do that, we will again go back to that American dream of sovereignty and full control over our own lives and our own communities.
Yeah, so for example, it's so like, okay, so like, for example, someone looks at this, they say, this is first of all, I have a daughter, my daughter's 3 years old. So I'm disgusted by this. Just for what it's worth, as a Jewish father, I say this to everyone listening. I'm completely repulsed by this stuff. It's disgusting. It's vulgar, and it's just it's nothing like I know of the beautiful Jewish faith. So here someone says, and I feel disgusting even talking like this to a Jewish mother, a Jewish woman, first of all, who's also married like me. I would never have this sort of inappropriate conversation. I'm not saying I wouldn't make jokes and stuff like that, but I would never even talk. I've never even had these sort of conversations with another Jewish person, with a woman, So I just want to say, I want to get that off my chest because we're on X streaming and it's so much filth and disgust there. At the same point, you're so respected. I see the net gain of you speaking on this more powerful, because if we don't speak up, they're just going to lie. And I think that our truth is actually what they hate the most. It literally, they just shut down. They just insult me. They'll say I'm a Zionist. They say I'm CIA. They say what the heck they want. They all they do is they do that. But if you just say the truth, then I think that the people who are just objectively, impartially, have no skin in the game, they're listening, they can at least make their own decisions. So here's what I ask you. All right. So this is my last one. Then I'll take it out because this feels dirty even talking about it. I apologize. No, it really truly does. I respect you. You're there. You say my name like my family. You speak Hebrew so beautifully. I feel uncomfortable doing it. So this is my last one. All right. So this lady, this propagandist, foreign propagandist who continuously does foreign interference in our elections. By the way, you can look at her tweets. I don't know how the FBI. I don't know how she's still here. All the foreign interference she does. But anyway, she says a Jew may have sex with a child as long as the child is less than 9 years old. You're a Jewish woman, a Jewish mother. You're the CEO of Prager University. What do you think?
I mean, it's disgusting. It's a lie. And do you want me to show you how many videos from the Islamic world children are being trafficked and sold? I mean, take a look at the Yazidi girls and what was done to them. And so, here's how do you summarize this? Tell me what you accuse the Jew of, and I will tell you exactly what you should be blamed for. That's what it is. Yeah. All these things that these foreign countries and the Jew haters are blaming the Jews for are the things that they are literally doing themselves. One thing after another, whether it's child trafficking, the selling of young brides, the horrendous treatment of women, the propaganda that they're doing, the buying of other people, the foreign interference. I mean, Qatar's foreign interference is bigger than anybody could imagine, especially in the last few years where they have seen that it's kind of working for them on social media. That's the bottom line. You want to have discernment. You want to understand what's going on. Find out what they're blaming the Jews of, and then you'll know that that's exactly what they themselves are doing.
Okay, so just 2 more questions here. I know I don't want to hold you back here. This is fantastic. So to people who do want to get involved, okay, personally, I recommend if you look at my content, you look at Marissa's content, you should go out there and create content yourself. We could use more people who are dedicated to truth. We are getting outnumbered by foreign bot accounts, and it's going to get worse. It's not going to go away. Even Marissa pointed out that that they're going to keep doing it, and Qatari oil money is very persuasive. Qatari oil money, and the Qataris, to me, are scared. They're scared. They're terrified. They're shaking because they're scared of what Israel is capable of, and they should be. And they're scared that Israel will wipe out the Iranian regime. And the Iranian regime has 8 out of 10 Iranians that do not want that Arab cult of Iraqis that's foreign occupied Iranian government, by the way. They want to go back to their Aryan culture, Aryan civilization. And they want to have nothing to do with giving billions of dollars to these Arab terrorists and giving over $100 billion overseas to go buy luxury homes in Europe and the United States, as Iranians don't have clean drinking water. So let's just say you're someone listening to this. What's like 2 practical steps that someone could listen to us on this podcast and say, I'm going to create 1 or 2 videos and I'm going to speak up. I'm going to go on TikTok, Chinese Communist Party TikTok. I'm going to go on Instagram, Facebook, X, Snapchat, and I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to make a 1-minute video talking about this because I'm exhausted and I'm tired. And I love my freedom. I love God. And I don't want to get taken over by communists and terrorists. Okay, so what's 2 things? How can they, first of all, like, what can they do to learn? Like, do you have a website that they can go to? Please, tell us so they can find you and get training from you, so they can go out and be advocates, because we can't do this alone, you and I.
Okay, Nima, you want to win this? I'm going to tell you how to win this.
Yep.
This is what you do. You spend every single day of your life so happy, so happy. Do the things that bring you joy. Spend time with your family. Raise as many kids as you possibly can. Enjoy every single moment with them. Bring meaning to their lives. Do meaningful things with them. Go to church with them. Go to temple with them. You know what evil really wants us? Evil wants us to feel despair. Evil wants us to sit in darkness. Evil wants us to pay attention to them. Pay attention to how much time you spend on social media watching evil podcasters and evil narratives. Refuse to do that. Refuse to give your mind to the evil content creators. Choose happiness. Choose brightness. Choose life. Choose life by spending time with people that matter to you. That's how we win. They want us to feel darkness and despair. Think about how dark communism is. Think about how dark it is for the lives, people who are living the lives under big government control. Think about that. They want people to feel despair because that's how they keep people controlled, in constant fear. But if you stand in the light and you enjoy time with your family, you become uncontrollable because your heart is open, your mind is open and clear. But when you're afraid, your mind is no longer clear and you can't figure out your purpose. Once you do that, that first step that is so significant and so important, that your heart is full, your mind is clear, then you can tap into your God-given blessings and you use them to be the light and bring goodness to others. It is not until you find happiness within your own self and your own family, not until you do that, do you figure out what your true purpose is. And you will figure out, believe me, if you choose light and you choose truth and wisdom and goodness and happiness and all of these words and all of these concepts that come with true service of God, then God will show you the way for how to be a servant to him.
Wow, yeah, that's beautiful. That's so for people who are not familiar with Prager University, what exactly is it, and how could they enroll? Because you sound like you know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I would, like, if my daughter wanted to learn, I would probably send my daughter to learn your programs. She's 3. But,
okay, so first of all, we have content for 4 years old all the way to 104, and truly, it's about making the world a better place. We do not charge for our content. You can look at prageru.com as a buffet. You can pick and choose, no matter, depending on what age you are, what interests you. You want to learn about forgiveness. You want to replenish your relationship with your parents or a loved one and don't quite know how to. Do you want to know how to stand in the light and be able to have that discernment to teach your child how to discern good versus evil? We make all of that content for you for free at no charge. You can pick and choose whatever it is that nourishes your soul. So you go to prageru.com. We also have an app. So if you want to make it super easy for your children where they're not swimming on the internet and looking for different things, you can download it into an iPad or an OTT on TV. Maybe skip Disney Plus or Netflix for a few weeks and watch some PragerU, vitamins for their brain, vitamins for your brain. I think that adults need vitamins for their brain too. I mean, especially if you spend a lot of time on social media, you could probably use a little bit of a positive boost to get there. If you're curious about the amazing things that we have accomplished here as Westerners, we have chronicled so much of American history, whether it's the presidents, whether it's understanding better the American Constitution. We really truly have content for every single age. And most of our content is super short. It's just 5-minute videos. I have a show, it's called Real Talk, and usually my interviews are about an hour. And also, during my interviews, I try to just bring people into the truth and into the light, and everything is completely free. And so, you can just go and enjoy it. For me, ROI is return on influence, and I want to influence people to do good and to see good and to fight against that which is trying to take us down, and that is evil.
And where could everyone find, like, if they want to find you on social media, where could they find you?
Yeah, much to my dismay, I have social media accounts. Instagram, I have an X account, Marissa Streit. You can find me also on YouTube. And really, if you want to see what some of my colleagues here at PragerU do, you can follow PragerU as well, or follow both. If you want more of this, there's a lot of it for you.
Yeah, I know. I know Xavier. He's a very nice, talented guy, handsome young man. It's I see him, and I feel like he talks very highly of your organization. So I think you sound like you got a fantastic team. They're very professional. They seem ethical. Have good ethics, and they're good examples. So I think you've done a fantastic job as a captain, as a coach, as a leader.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, we have Xavier, who's part of our full-time personality lineup, but we also have amazing other thinkers and thought leaders who have made shorter videos for us. Larry Elder, Victor Davis Hanson, Glenn Beck has made content for us. Charlie Kirk has made content for us. Obviously Dennis Prager when he was able to, and the lineup goes on and on. Some of Konstantin Kisin, Douglas Murray. I mean, some of everybody's favorite, most important, I think, intellectuals of our time. We've been able to capture their ideas in 5 minutes, so you really get to hear a distilled version of the best way for them to articulate their thoughts. All of that is available on our website, prageru.com.
That's my last question. It's been a complete pleasure having you. Just like a closing thought. Do you think that it's people? This is disinformation. They say, that they try to say almost like as if Israel would have went after Charlie Kirk, which I think is preposterous. I think if anything, it was Qatar, hands down. I mean, because they're terrified of Israel taking out the Iranian regime, and then their oil fields are pretty much more vulnerable. They have to face much more competition. To me, it seems like Qatar has billions to gain, and they want to keep their billions of oil money. So I could not imagine Israel wanting to do something like that when Israel had so much to benefit from someone who loved Israel so much. I mean, I've seen an image of Charlie Kirk holding an Israeli flag. So I ask you, in his last couple of months, in his last year, do you think Charlie Kirk was still committed to the friendship between the United States and Israel, or as a Christian man and the Jewish people? Or do you think it's true that he was not?
How can people accuse Israel of both being ultra competent and completely incompetent at the same time? This is the exact example that I talk about when Israel gets, hit from both sides of the street. And so if Israel had the competence to take any influencer out, of all the people that they're taking out, do you really think that it would be Charlie Kirk, the guy who got engaged in Israel and love Israel's and has dedicated his next book to the most famous Jew in America, that is Dennis Prager, who's authored a book about the Jewish Sabbath? Is Israel that incompetent while being so competent, given who Charlie was, right? And he did have security. So if Israel was competent enough to just take out podcasters that are turning against Israel, I think that the lineup would be a little different. It would certainly not be Charlie Kirk. I mean, it is a horrible thing for Israel that Charlie was murdered, not just because morally and ethically taking out a young man, a father of beautiful children and a husband, and just really an amazing person, a guy who I think exhibited what America and Americans would see as a hope for our future. I mean, many of us looked at Charlie and said, he should be a president one day, and we should have more young men like Charlie Kirk walking around this planet. And so not only would Israel not want to take out a guy like that, but Charlie Kirk loved Israel. Was he critical of Israel? Sure, I'm critical of Israel. Everybody can be critical of Israel. Everybody can be critical of every country. But if Israel is that competent that it could just take podcasters out, I don't think that they would be taking Charlie Kirk out, who constantly tried to work with Israelis, with pro-Israel Jews in America who wanted to defend Israel's right to, exist. I mean, it would just be the most incompetent thing that Israel could do if they actually did that. Should they have been competent enough to do that?
Yeah.
Horrible. It's really horrible. It's
Yeah,
a
well,
horrible accusation.
yeah, I think it's horrible. Also, I mean, I think so many Israeli people loved Charlie Kirk. I mean, it's just I think like when I talk to Jewish people, I feel like many of us we lost a friend, a big supporter. So I don't think any of us were. I think we sincerely felt like we lost a hero, someone that was.
I mean,
Like
Nima, the perfect proof is that when Charlie was the head of Turning Point, the Jewish community was not worried about Turning Point turning against the Jews or against Israel. Now that Charlie Kirk is not there, you're asking me questions on whether you think Turning Point is going to continue to support Israel and the Jewish community. And so here's the perfect example of how people like you are concerned that Charlie is no longer there. Again, you tell me what you're accusing the Jew of, and I'll tell you what you should be blamed for.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think you just nailed it. I mean, I'm completely of the party of people who think Qatar had the biggest motivation in the whole world. They were scared of after Israel delivered a powerful message in Qatar, and they're scared that Israel will help the Iranian regime get completely destroyed with the help of the majority of the Iranians who want that regime destroyed. And they know that millions of Iranians admire the Israeli Defense Force's creativity, imagination, and morality. They understand that the IDF is known with prestige for their morality in war, which is naturally disgusting and dark and tragic. However, when they look at the Iranian regime and they look at, girls getting raped, girls getting murdered, and the father never getting justice, the father does not get justice. He just has to live for the rest of his life knowing that his daughter was raped and then murdered and left on the street. And there's no justice. And I think to me that's an evil regime. And it makes sense that they're scared of Israel. But coming back to Qatar, my final point I want to emphasize is that I understand for Qatar, I'm scared. I only have 300,000 Qataris and we have oil and we don't want to lose our oil. And we know that if the Iranian regime is gone, then we're left naked. And I could imagine Al Tahini, the leader who I think is very smart, the leader of Qatar is very smart. His IQ, he's not a dumb Arab that's just banging these goats. No, he's actually smart Arab, probably one of the greatest Arabs that they've had in the last century as far as leadership. He has a high IQ, much higher IQ than many Europeans and Americans. We're underestimating the leader of Qatar. We're underestimating his motivation to survival. We're underestimating the leader of Qatar and how much he's willing to spend billions of dollars on our podcast schools and our politicians, because he knows that if Israel is gone from the United States, from the Middle East, that secures his oil wealth.
And there's another point I'd like to make, and maybe a psychiatrist can give me an answer to this, because I truly want to understand the answer to this. How did we get to a point that we care more about conspiracy theory than about evidence and facts and truth? It seems like X and other social media feeds are so focused on conspiracy theories. President Trump loved Charlie Kirk like his own son. I know this. The folks that work at the White House were in hysteria. I happened to be there that week after the murder of Charlie Kirk. They were at a point where adults cried, sitting on the floor, crying like babies because their friend was murdered. There was fear. There was fear because everybody felt so close to him. They didn't even know how to think about what happened. And so we have folks at the White House with more access than you and I have, and probably more closeness and love for Charlie Kirk than many of your listeners. President Trump, again, he has more access to information than we do and more love of Charlie Kirk than you and I do. And so we are at a point where we can ask our government to discern the truth. And I know it's very in vogue these days to just think that nobody knows anything except for the great comedian podcasters on social media. And nobody knows anything except for somebody who's sitting in their mother's basement and doing whatever research on 4chan. Okay, but some of us need to be adults in the room again. And we have to ask ourselves, we have a president who loved Charlie Kirk like his own son. We have a president who has more access to information than any of us do. And he has a team of people who love Charlie Kirk like a dear, dear friend. At what point are we going to say to ourselves, enough listening to the silly comedians on X? Just because they have lots of followers, it doesn't mean that they know everything. And let's actually become more rational about everything. Let's become rational about things.
Yeah. Yeah. So just, I know you nailed it. I mean, you're so smart. I mean, it's, your children are very fortunate to have you as a mother. And thank you so much. It was a pleasure. It was truly a pleasure. If there's any last things you would like to say for close, I mean, this is truly your last closing thought.
All I have to say is get married, have children. If you're a man in your mid-30s and you're not married, what is wrong with you? Okay, something is wrong. Go get it going. You need to get married. And if you're a woman and the reason you're not getting married is because you've chosen career, you're going to regret it. Choose a baby, not the briefcase. Let's go and do what's actually meaningful and what's going to bring you happiness. And if you do get married, thanks to this Nima Marissa podcast, then we will bless you. And both of us will send you a congratulatory email. Just email us back and we will be so happy that you brought more good babies into this world, because truly that's what I believe both you and I wish for civilization.
Yes, that's right. All right, everyone, please share, subscribe to the page, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.